I got chills when you said that.
The AI solutions on the enterprise level need to connect to your systems and operate within your systems. Having these extra layers on top, these interfaces, I can't tell you how many companies I see come in where we have these, failed deployments. They're kind of creating almost like what I call SaaS 2.0. They have 15 different small AI siloed solutions and trying to figure this out across every team. That's kind of the entry point that companies took, is just, let's just try all these tools across every part of our business. Even though AI itself has been around for a long time, I mean, back to the 70s if you want to talk AI, but in terms of within the business context, NLP models and big data, augmented, all this stuff has been around for 10, 15 years, but people haven't had exposure to it.
Welcome to the Success Revenue Podcast, where AI meets leadership and real business impact, from the Middle East to the world. This is the show for leaders navigating how AI is unlocking human impact and reshaping how businesses grow.
We are your hosts, Ivy Ferrero, executive leader and speaker, and Haider Al-Saad, CEO of Nebulous, where businesses build and deploy AI agents. Join us for another conversation on this episode.
All right, guys, I am so very excited because our next guest has spent over 2 decades at the intersection of people, culture, and now artificial intelligence. James Nicholas Kinney is a global chief AI officer, enterprise transformation leader, and influential voice at the intersection of AI leadership and human behavior. As a global AI officer at INVNT, he leads next-generation AI platforms and enterprise intelligence systems, including the Event Intelligence Engine, which transforms how organizations predict, execute, and measure real-world experiences through data, machine learning, and live operational insights. Previously, Global Chief of People Officer at S4 Capital, James oversaw people strategy across 32 countries and helped the agency with AI Agency of the Year. Known as the ad industry's therapist, he uniquely blends tech, performance, culture, and psychology. Triple certified in AI from MIT, Wharton, and Carnegie Mellon, James focuses on practical implementation that drives measurable growth and smarter decision making. He has authored several books, including Sustaining Leadership and AI Mental Health, with new work underway on business, civic impact, and the future of leadership. As a speaker and advisor, his work spans human-centered AI strategy, the mental health impact of algorithmic systems, and civic leadership in an AI-enabled world. Through his platform, AI for Better, he is building new models for legislation, results, and impact. He believes AI should make us better, not just faster, and he's here to talk about what that actually means. James, I am so excited to have you on.
Welcome, James.
Thank you. Excited to be here and chat with you all. Let's dig in.
No, wonderful. James, so why don't you start us off with telling us a little bit more of where you're based, a little bit more of your background, your journey, and how did you ended up where you're at?
Yeah, well, first of all, amazing to be here with you all this morning. Every day that we get a chance to wake up, we're lucky, right? Because some people don't. So I literally don't take that for granted. Or maybe I'm just making an excuse for being so ambitious. But that's really my life story. It's like, how much life can I get out of this one that I have? And I know the two of you really represent that type of excellence, right? So my career has been really fascinating. There's been several arcs to it and several stories, but certainly it all starts with people. I started in law firms originally as a marketer and worked my way up to about 500 plus attorneys, learning from senior partners. And I think that gave me a lot of professional acumen and understanding of business. Moving quickly into the advertising space has been great. Advertising is truly global in nature, and I've led several major agencies as a chief people officer. But in 2021, when the landscape really started to shift and change, I was teaching people Midjourney when that platform and technology was coming out before ChatGPT. But that was really the first big disruptor. So as kind of a teacher, coach, and trainer of AI technology, that led to me teaching people Gemini and all the platforms that we have now. I since have spent the past 3 years constantly in school being certified in AI. And I think that's important because We're living in such a memeified world that everyone claims they're an expert, but I chose MIT, Wharton, and Carnegie Mellon being the top universities in the world on this topic so that I could be qualified to transition from a traditional people leader to a technology leader. And now that we're seeing the impact on people and AI together, I couldn't have planned a better nexus of my careers coming together.
And James, tell us a little bit more about your role as a Global Chief AI Officer at INVNT,
Yes.
which is one of the hottest jobs right now out there.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a scarce amount of talent for chief AI officers and qualified chief AI officers. But certainly, what a chief AI officer is if you think about a CTO, the chief technology officer would typically have a lot of technical expertise on the build, right? What platforms are we building and managing? That's everything from custom coding in multiple different types of languages, managing a platform like a NetSuite or a Salesforce or Google Workspace, Microsoft, etc. But typically, if you're a CTO, you're going to have a duality. And that duality is going to be internal systems and potentially building product for clients. If you're a CIO, the information in that role is often about what is your data architecture and what does the information systems and architecture look like within an organization. Certainly you all are in Dubai, so you know we're literally living in the future. We couldn't have even imagined in the mid 2000s that we would have a platform like we're speaking on and have a seamless connection driven by satellites, the cloud, and so much more. So I think information architecture by a CIO is very important. So now you introduce a chief AI officer. Well, the chief AI officer in that Venn diagram is holding the place of a CTO from a technical perspective, a CIO from a data perspective, and they have all of the newest LLMs, middleware technologies, and platforms that they're deploying specifically to solve problems. But what they really need, and this is why my background I think is so fitting and why my boss hired me, is that you really need the organizational change management skills to also make it happen. Because you can't just show up to 1,000 people and say, you know what, everyone from now on is using Microsoft Copilot. You have to train them on how to use Copilot. You have to tell them why. And there has to be specific use cases on how it's deployed within the organization, or it'll never stick. I'm not sure if you all have seen this data, but MIT recently said 90% of AI pilots are failing. And I can tell you why. The data in the organization is not ready, number one. But number two, the cultural change management piece, it is a tall mountain to climb.
Oh, you just nailed something, James. So I have definitely seen this in my organization. And when you're dealing with a global company, there's a lot of legacy systems, right? And I feel like there's a lot of resistance to change from a human perspective, whether it's you call it psychology or neuroscience. Humans in general, we don't like to change, right? But for me, the biggest thing that it's going to be needed in the age of AI is adaptability. And adaptability is the ability to learn and learn, learn and learn. And we don't talk enough about the ability of unlearning things and to actually expand your mind to see possibility and see potential. So yeah, I think that what you just mentioned about change management is huge, and we're not talking enough about it.
I completely agree. And thank you for sharing your experience. Do you have any other perspectives that you've seen or that you're going through now in terms of that difficulty? Because I think it's almost like a translation thing too. Like the three of us have lived in similar places or the same places, but then the three of us are also living in different places, right? So like instantly when the three of us met, we had to quickly translate in our brains, right? To facilitate this conversation. And what I'm seeing is that people don't know how to translate.
Mm, mm, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll add to that as well, James. With the work that we do, we're working with organizations. Obviously, for the people that listen to the podcast, knows agentic AI space deployments globally, different markets, and what you said with 90% of pilots fail, which is very true. And you hit nail on the head there with a few of those reasons, right? That the data is always a big issue. The change management internally is a big issue. But then there's also that kind of gap between, I think, especially in enterprises, if you think about that context of AI and how it's being implemented, there's kind of that disconnect between AI and these pilots that are failing are being built by engineers and techie people over here. And then it goes to a sandbox after 3 months, and the actual business people come and look at it like, this doesn't follow my logic. This is not how I would do this. This is not the quality that we're expecting. And then it goes back into that sandbox for another 3 months, and then the same thing happens. So there's a kind of disconnect, I think, also, which is part of that translation piece that you're talking about between how involved people are in that process of formulating the AI that then is going to help them or augment what they're doing. So the quality, there's a disconnect there. And I'm kind of curious in that same vein, because you talk a lot about AI, looking at your work as something that is not there to replace how we think. It's not there to replace how we operate, what we do, but it's there to strengthen it, right? To make it better, to improve it, to take things off our plate so we can focus on other things, right? So we talk about that. I always talk about AI-powered, human-led, kind of that dynamic. So I'm kind of curious, how do you actually put this into practice, right? Because I think this is something that organizations and people individually are struggling with, how to put all this into actually becoming a superpower versus something to be scared of or that is not really built in a way that helps them, right?
Thanks, Hadar. I appreciate you sharing your experience there too. And you're right. I mean, I think it's emotionally painful for people that they get so frustrated. And I know I have too, working across multiple teams. You're sitting with the finance team, the HR team, the marketing org, or whatever, and these silos that exist within every single company. And ultimately, you respect each other, but it gets super frustrating super quick when you're just trying to like ideate how to go about something. But anyway, to answer your question, so I've used something called ADDIE, which is not super popular. ADDIE. Have either of you heard of it? Yeah, you have. Okay, cool.
No.
Well, so ADDIE is an industrial training framework, and essentially it means analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. And that ADDIE methodology, I think it came out in the 60s, and I think it came from the military. If you go back to it, a lot of the great ideas come from the military. But it was like, we have 5,000 soldiers. How do we get them to remember this mantra? How do we get them to clean the gun the same way or tie their boots the same way? Making it less fancy, let's just talk about like what this call's about. It's about building relationships with people first. My frustration as a global executive, and now I'm a 4-time C-level executive, is people just skip over the relationship part. And I think trust is the biggest issue that we're dealing with on the planet Earth right now, not being hyperbolic. Trust is the number one issue on the planet. Do the Russians trust the Chinese? Do the Chinese trust the Americans? Do the Colombians trust the Canadians? I'm just using those countries as random examples, but literally that's an issue. So if Ivy, if you're the CMO, if I'm the CFO, and Hadar, you're the Chief People Officer, do we really know each other and do we trust each other? And I think if we do, and if we can, what common ground can we find amongst each other to achieve the same goals? Because in my book, Sustaining Leadership, I talk about this broken system of incentives, and the two of you know it. If you've worked in any corporate environment, it's heartbreaking to see your colleagues throw you under the bus, slash your throat, talk noise about you on calls. I mean, I'm telling you, I've been in boardrooms for a long time. And it's shocking that you can have a meeting with someone and be on the same page and then walk into the boardroom and they throw you under the bus. And like, it sounds funny, like it's like a TV show, but it's real. So I know I'm rabbit holing a little bit, but my point there is establish trust, decide together what are the quick, easy wins that are MVPs, as we would say in building tech. Can I just get a beta? Can I just get a small MVP, minimal viable product, so we can understand what the heck is this thing and how does it really work? But don't go out and tell 10,000 people across the org, we're doing this, we're going to be all AI. I mean, I love Mark Benioff. Clearly, I have not made $30 billion, But bro is saying, we're going to have 1 billion agents and we're calling it Agent Force. I'm like, hold on, homie, slow down. Anyway,
Few steps, yeah. Few steps. Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I don't know if you agree, but like, you know what I mean?
No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and then clearly, there are, I think, 5 pricing models deep into the Salesforce, figuring out like how to even price this thing, where it creates value, and everything else. So, yeah, I totally agree there. And it's funny, like, as you're talking, for us, right, all of us on this call and people listening that have been in leadership positions for a very long time, where you're not in one silo, one role, doing one thing, right? But you're cross-functionally working at a certain level. That's the job. You have to interact with every piece of the business, understand it, and so on and so forth. But this is not a new problem, right? Like you go back to 10 years ago, and Ivy and I, we have a background in on the customer side, and like if you're leading the customer team, and then you have the sales team and the marketing and RevOps, and you have to work with everyone, and there's always this balance, and you go to the boardrooms. But I think with AI, this is amplified, right? Because the stakes are high, everything's moving faster, the competition is moving faster. Now you have, startups are coming up behind you that are learning much faster than you are and are much more agile than you are as a mid-sized or big corporation. So I think this is nothing new, and in the corporate world, it's just amplified like everything else. AI is kind of putting a light on things or amplifying where it's going well and not well, which I think is a really interesting dynamic here. And for yourself, James, because you went from the people side and led massive organizations, global teams, and really focused on the human piece of the business, right? Which is really at the end of the day, the people and the customers are your core really assets, right? Everything else is around that. And now you're in kind of maybe the most demanding technical role, both strategically, and the technology itself is somewhat complex. But you made that pivot, right? You talked about going to Wharton and other schools to learn and become an expert for real, not just a LinkedIn expert, as many people are today. Like what was the moment where you decided I need to make this pivot for real and not just talk about it or dabble in this thing, but actually this is the future. This is what's going to drive where we're going moving forward. Because this is a new thing, even though the dynamics in the organization are similar to where they've been over the last many decades here in corporate America and globally as well in different markets. What made you make that intentional move?
Intentional move was seeing the future. I don't know if I can. I'm not a future teller or however you say that.
You saw it early.
Well, yeah, like if you're a strategic mind, you can kind of see where things were going. And funny enough, I really wasn't working with people. Again, when you talk about these problems aren't new, talk to any CHRO or global chief people officer at the scale that I was at, and they'll tell you, oh, we don't even work with people. We're just in board meetings all day, every day, and committee meetings every day. I was in finance and ops meetings and legal meetings all day. I managed my team, which would be like vice presidents and senior vice presidents, et cetera, throughout the world in regions, APAC, Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and North America, but I rarely met with employees. It turns into a business role more than anything else. So that being said, AI for me, and this is so funny, and again, and like I happily hate on all of the hypesters. And I know on your website you talk about beyond the hype. I hate the hypesters, honestly. There's some of the influencers is like, how are you an influencer on AI? You were like selling sleep gummies last year. You're an AI expert now. You were selling sleep gummies last year. You know what I'm saying? So like at a minimum, the three of us are business executives that are tried and true at a minimum. So don't tell me that you are an AI agentic expert when you were doing a Tulum yoga retreat last year. Anyway, don't get me started on the fake influencers. So that being said,
quite a lot of them.
Come on, man, come on. So, I mean, that being said, I'm a tried and true global executive, hands down, with all the receipts and all the facts. But here's the thing. If you want to be taken seriously in this world, and now I feel like I'm mentoring to the audience, which I'm happy to do. If you want to be taken seriously in this world, you have to take yourself serious, which means what sacrifices are you going to make to get to where you want to go? I knew that I could not go from quote unquote HR guy to chief AI officer without real credentials and real projects and real abilities to build. So I took 3 years, nights, weekends, and $40,000 of my own money, and I went back to school, 3 different schools. And that was very important for me to recalibrate myself. And I'm happy to talk about that because, again, I think that's what this podcast is about. It's what the two of you stand for. And I need people to know, absolutely, I did not wave a magic wand and become a chief AI officer. Sundays, where you think I was? On the couch, in front of the computer, 8 hours straight, going in. And I built projects by myself from the ground up, studied Python. I really did it. I really did it. So when the opportunity came for me to meet my boss, Scott, who's the chairman of INVNT, we met on a panel for the Professional Golfers Association. And it was the CTO of the PGA, me, my boss, Scott, and a couple other people. And on that call, because I was prepared, I was able to go boom, 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 boom. And my technical expertise shined. And when I showed up to the first call with my boss, my technical architecture was flawless. That's something that only a CTO, CIO, or a CAIO knows how to do. And so that's how I did it. I mean, look, I was blessed and highly favored that I met Scott and ran into him. I went from a 10,000 person company to a company with 200 employees. So I was also willing to go from a large global enterprise to a smaller global company. But again, that was the sacrifice I was willing to make to go where I wanted to go. And now I'm building literally one of the most transformational platforms that's ever been built in the experiential marketing industry. And it's real. And we partner with Snowflake, which is one of the biggest data and AI platforms in the world. It's real and it's patent pending. So we're standing on business and putting money behind it.
Wow, James, that's so exciting. And tell me a little bit more, James, as a chief AI officer at INVNT, you're building agentic workflows that power brand experience at a global scale. For a senior leader who's not technical, but that is responsible for AI transformation, what are the 2 or 3 decisions that will define whether it works or fails, in your opinion?
AI in general?
Yeah, AI transformation within their own companies.
Well, there's a book by John, I forgot his last name, but it's You Can't Manage What You Can't Measure. He was one of the big Silicon Valley VCs. I think it's John Doerr or something like that, but I'm probably messing up his last name. But I love that book. You can't manage what you can't measure. So how do they know it's going to work? Start with, what are you measuring? Is it money? Is it time? Is it headcount? And what is the impact? I then think you work with someone like you guys, and you develop a agentic solution or a chat-based solution, or that's how you decide what you're going to build. Start with, well, what are you measuring? What are you solving for? As a data scientist that I am now, I talk to people things like, let's solve for X. And that's literally where I start. Solve for X. Let's put it into a logic problem. Very, very simple. What are we solving for? Tell me what we're solving for. I will reverse engineer it and build it and bring it back to you.
I love that. I love reverse engineering. And James, now let's go into your other facet of who you are, which you are a book publisher. Okay. So one of the books you wrote about is on AI and mental health. And that's not a pairing most AI executives will make. What made you see that connection, and what does AI's impact on mental health at work look like in an organization where, in any of these organizations that you have had a front row seat?
Well, I hope you gather this from my personality by now, but I'm an unapologetic adult. And in my early 30s, I was agoraphobic, which is an extreme form of anxiety. And my crash and burn was horrible. I spent 3 years not being myself, missing birthday parties, missing events, being detached from the world, living in fear, having panic attacks. And if you know anyone that you love that's been through that, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy, to not be in your right mind. So I organically went through a long journey of healing myself. and coming back to be the man and the leader that I am today. So that book is kind of a memoir talking about my journey, how I went from making $30,000 a year being trapped in my apartment to where I am now. I couldn't even imagine that I'd be living the life that I'm living now. But the nexus of the AI conversation and my mental health journey, I was named the ad industry's therapist by Adweek because during the pandemic, I taught free classes for people to meditate, and I helped people for free I had hundreds of people on private Zooms, and I would do meditation and speak words of faith into them during the pandemic. It didn't matter who you were. You could show up on a call. It's all verified, and you can see it on the internet, what I did to help people during the pandemic. So AI mental health, I just kind of had this moment where I said and I was like, whoa, AI can offer this acute opportunity to help people when they might be going through tough times, but there's also peril and a dark side to it. And similar to what we were talking about, Ivy, when we spoke on the call, AI does not have to be about layoffs and the end of humanity. It doesn't. Sadly, that's the narrative that we've let out first because we know the algorithms are tuned for doom and gloom. If you watch the news, we know that they'd rather talk about the building that burned down than someone helping a woman across the street. So AI and mental health explores that duality of what is mental health and my journey, and then what are the possibilities for AI associated with it. And I think just like social media, if we don't have this conversation and we underestimate the peril and the power, we're really in trouble.
And James, while you're at it, why don't you tell us about the new book that is coming out?
Yeah, so I have a new one coming out end of June called AI That Pays. And I think it's similar to this conversation in that I'm going straight in, no fluff from chapter 1. Here's how you make money within the enterprise and AI. Because again,
Wow.
I'll keep making fun of TikTok and Instagram because I consider myself the anti-influencer. It's not about I made $1 billion with AI because I ran 74 agents and they all did my drop shipping for me. Sorry, I keep making fun of those people. It's okay if they come after me. They can call me the corporate guy, whatever. But within the enterprise, the three of us know it's different. You cannot deploy OpenClaw across your bank. Literally, you can't do it. So everyone talking about, I did this with OpenClaw, or I built 17 agents for my makeup. I'm like, great, good. But at the enterprise level, you can't do that. So within enterprises, I go through a step-by-step across HR, across finance, across marketing, across ops. For maybe an OEM that is shipping, manufacturing, I go into robotics, logistics. I cover everything top to bottom. But here's the thing that I do in the book that I think is really helpful. I cross-reference it for like this. I use Salesforce as my CRM. How do I think about AI? I use NetSuite as my ERP. How do I think about AI? Because I think those are the missing pieces. What Workday is trying to do, and every other SaaS company, rightly so. SaaS companies are saying, oh man, we have to recalibrate. And now we're Salesforce AI. Now we're Workday AI. I was a global AI ambassador for Workday last year and spoke at their big conference in San Francisco. So I know firsthand how these large platforms are trying to recalibrate. So I also put it through that lens of I'm running X and I'm running multiple systems. How do I think about that? Because here's what people should know, again, at the global enterprise level. You do not want to be beholden to a specific platform, or you're going to repeat the same mistakes of the past 15 years. No shade against ServiceNow or any of these big global platforms. But really, if you think about what's possible with AI, and this is coming from people that I know in Silicon Valley, I'm talking about heavy hitters that I know in this space. The real opportunity with AI is to be able to harvest your own data and deploy closed architectures that power your business in ways that people can't even imagine. But that requires the democratization of data, and it requires the right systems. And as we know on this call, it's structured, clean data that's able to be understood and deployed in a seamless way. So you don't want to just take slop and then put it in the AI version of NetSuite. That's not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think, and again, you're kind of preaching to the choir as people on this call. I think a lot of our listeners as well that are in these different contexts, right? A lot of our audience are trying to figure these things out. Where do I start? How do I do it? So this book sounds like an excellent way of doing that. But I think it's so interesting, right? Like, and you're seeing this, and we're seeing this. I'm seeing this every single day in the business that we work with, right? And the different companies, whether that's and we work mostly with regulated verticals and industries. So, like you said, yeah,
There's
can
no
yeah,
open in
no,
debate.
any of this stuff. It's not
Right.
going to be accepted. You need governance, you need security, you need data
Yes,
readiness, you need
yes,
data
yes,
residency. All this stuff needs to be in there,
yes.
right? But it doesn't matter if we're working, let's say, with a healthcare provider in Europe, or a logistics company in the US, or government entity over here in the GCC. There all comes down to that governance piece. It comes down to that data readiness. It comes down to how do you. And I think this is of everything that you said that resonates really with me is the AI solutions on the enterprise level need to connect to your systems and operate within your systems. Having these extra layers on top, these interfaces, I can't tell you how many companies I see come in where we have these, deployed failed deployments, and they're kind of creating almost like what I call SaaS 2.0. They have 15 different small AI siloed solutions and trying to figure this out across every team. I'm curious, like your thoughts on that, because I think that's kind of the entry point that companies took is just, let's just try all these tools across every part of our business. And then they
Like
realize this doesn't work.
literally, I can't say it any different or any better. Like I got chills when you said that because I can't say it any different or any better.
Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure. But yeah, I think we're aligned there. But again, this comes from, like you said, actually doing the work, right? Operating within this context of AI, which is very new for everyone. So it
Well,
takes time for leaders and businesses to figure out, even though AI itself has been around for a long time. I mean, back to the 70s, if you want to talk AI, but in terms of within the business context, NLP models and big data, augmented, all this stuff has been around for 10, 15 years,
right.
but people
Well,
haven't had exposure to it. Yeah.
and, and look, I have empathy for people because I'm one of them. When I was a chief people officer, I'm like, I worked on fixing Workday for years because I inherited a system that wasn't built right. And guess what? If my first call was at 6 a.m. and it's 4 p.m. and you want to have a call with me about Workday, I'm exhausted. I really want to just go for a walk
Yeah.
and have a smoothie. Ivy and I were talking about smoothies when we just started the call. So I get it. We get exhausted, and I think the cultural appetite for software to solve things that are actually human problems, and that might be the quote of the podcast,
Yeah.
is
No,
really what we're talking about. So now there's this appetite to, well, AI will just fix the slop. I'm like, no, it actually won't.
yeah. Yeah. Not the way that people think, for sure. But I'm curious, we talked about your books and different things. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Business Lens Media, I think it was, who
Yeah,
named the top, was a data and AI leader of to watch in 2026,
yeah,
which is, again, very, very cool. That getting that recognition, it means that you're doing something right. And part of that, to watch means, hey, let's see what you're thinking about, what's going to happen in 2026 and maybe beyond. I'm curious to know, when it comes to building AI infrastructure, the things that we've been talking about here in different ways, what do you see over the next, let's call it 18 to 24 months? We don't want to take too long of a horizon with AI here, but 18 to 24 months, what do you see coming down the pike that people aren't thinking about yet, that they're missing, that they might be surprised about or haven't really thought about yet? And I'm curious to get that kind of future view that you have.
sure. Well, I'm gonna say something different. I don't like the doom and gloom people either. At least you guys can tell that's clear who I don't like. Um,
Yes.
so
You
I,
should
I
also tell
don't
us
like,
who you do like.
who do I like? I mean,
You like the people that actually know what they're talking about, is what I mean, which is good.
exactly. I like people who are actually working and who actually have credentials.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people that I like. So we're going to see a slowdown, but I don't think it is a bubble. I don't like these bubble people. Mathematically and fiscally, which I've served at two publicly traded companies, The math doesn't math. That's true, as we say in pop culture. The valuations don't make sense. That's also true. But I think the thing that we should think about is AI eats data. That's what it needs to survive and feel alive. The homogenous nature of AI is already here. Try to have a long conversation with ChatGPT and it'll start repeating itself and it uses the same kind of language. It doesn't have a personality, even though some people think that it does. We can talk about tuning all we want, but it literally is, it's a computer. It does not have a personality. Anyone who tries to convince me otherwise, I'm going to recommend a hospital for them. So we're going to have a slowdown because of the consumption of data. And we might start creating synthetic data, which is dangerous. Because to put that in street language, we'll start making shit up. That's not good. But what I think happens there is that propels what the three of us do, which is if there's no more data on the internet or there's no more data on the streets, there's two places to take it from. One is like a RAG model where we're taking the conversations from the internet and we're deploying those conversations in the internet into models to shape and shift the tuning and the information, which is a fascinating notion. And I think a lot of that's already happening. But it's a level of scraping that we haven't seen before. And I'm talking about, this is a huge macro thing that I just said there. The other thing is it's going to allow a P&G, a Unilever, or a General Motors to start to say, we've been building cars since 1930, but we have boxes of files somewhere in a storage facility in Michigan. And we have physical photographs of Corvettes from the 1960s, which is unstructured data, as you know. So we're going to start this kind of like electronic medical records thing all over again. I literally have colleagues that are still working at companies now where they do EMR and like there's mental hospitals. Like I have a friend, a big company, $200 million business. They have mental health records of patients from the 1940s that are in physical files in storage. And they still have to digitize those and upload those to the cloud. So those are two things that I think that will happen. One comes with a lot of risk of running out of data because the appetite for data and the homogeneous nature of that, because that's when you go, well, what's real, what's fake? Everything sounds the same. But then the other part presents a really cool opportunity where we start to take IBM, General Motors, P&G, Unilever, Public Investment Fund, and you go, wow, there's petabytes of data that are available for these organizations to harness. So those are two things that I would stand on as predictions.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think those are definitely things. And I mean, we're already seeing it. You see each iteration of the, big LLMs, right? The next Claude, Sonnet 4.6 is not that much better than 4.5, or each iteration is the delta between what it was and what it is getting smaller and smaller. And a lot of that's because of, again, the data, the compute, all the things that behind the models that are powering them, right? So yeah, 12 months down the line, especially with, everything going on in the world today, less data centers going to be built than was expected and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. This will be something that will come into play for sure.
Which is good because we need the market to calibrate. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
we've invented. Yeah, I mean, we've invented the new fire, the new electricity, the new wheel, if you will. I think it's good that it'll slow down and calibrate a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome, James. So we've been running through our conversation. It's been a really, really interesting, insightful, and entertaining one with you. But we have actually one more thing for you, because we always like to finish off with our guests with what we call as familiar with from back home in the US, a rapid fire round as well, with some easy questions, quick answers. So yeah, see, I was gonna say, are you ready for that? But I can see that you're ready. Awesome. All right. So we'll start you off really easy. I'll get going here with the biggest opportunity with AI right now is
corporate data.
The biggest risk with AI right now is
slop and misinformation.
Very good. All right. And then next one, let's fast forward 12 months. We pretend we're 1 year into the future. You look back at this previous year and read the newspaper. read the newspaper, quote unquote. What do you want the headline to be from this past year at that point?
Ivy and James take over Miami.
Good one. I used to live in Miami for a few years, so we can definitely do that.
That sounds like a fun.
Yeah. That's
Well done.
the headline that I want to see. Hadar, Ivy, and James Tartary at Miami.
Love it.
And they have a strategic convention of the world's 20 brightest AI minds. That's a good headline.
That's a very good one. I like that.
James, what's one thing that you're grateful for right now?
Oh, grateful for this brain that I can keep being curious, coming up with solutions. And I'm grateful that I can meet new people all the time, like the two of you, that give me a feeling that things can only get better because I feed off of the positive energy of smart, dedicated folks like you.
Oh, you guys are sweet. What's one word you want this year to be about?
Well, I do have a word of the year. You know me better than you knew. Last year, my word was sovereignty. And I claim sovereignty for myself across multiple domains. This year, the word is dominance. And I'm not playing around, as you can tell, by my super PAC, my book, my schooling, my job. And I'm a marathoner. So you can psychoanalyze that. But dominance is my word of 2026. I'm not playing any games with anybody.
Wow, you're bringing in the fire. Lots of fire within you. James, this has been an incredible episode. By far, my favorite episode of the year. I can already say that even thinking of future guests, they're going to have to tap a lot of fire. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James, for having on.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Success Remedy podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and also give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.